All right, everybody, what's going on? West Ham, Chelsea this weekend. It's a huge match for Chelsea to kind of get back into the swing of things. I have Rob with me here, RJP Journalism, yet again to kind of talk about the match. Rob, huge match. Chelsea need to get back to their winning ways and get some form. Wesley Fofana's coming in. It looks like he may be able to start. He went to training yesterday. What's your kind of thoughts on the match?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Both sides come into it in patchy form. West Ham struggled at the start of the season. Obviously, won last weekend, got their draw against Tottenham. Chelsea in equally patchy form. Won a game, drew a game, lost a game, won a game, lost a game. So it's not as if either side comes into it in particular sort of sparkling endeavour. I'm not expecting a match of high quality. London derbies seldom are. They're usually itty bitty gritty affairs. And I think, to be honest, it'll be the sort of thing that's settled by one, maybe two goals. I'm not expecting some sort of, goal fest. I think West Ham will be happy to come and play very similar to Southampton, happy to let Chelsea have possession and play on the break. Same as Leeds. I think Chelsea will try and have more of a dominance and try and make more happening. But obviously at the moment, they've got the issues that the attack isn't really firing besides Raheem Sterling, and also being too easy to score against. I did say to someone else, and I still think this might ring true, I think Chelsea this weekend, and I think especially Thomas Tuchel, will try and move back to his original mentality of the, whatever happens, we will be hard to beat. And I think that's why, you might see a three at the back. I think you might see Fofana coming in. I do wonder if you might see Koulibaly out this weekend, purely because I think he was a bit rusty against Southampton, and maybe they also, rest Thiago Silva because he's going to need a rest at some point. They've got Trevor Chalobah who can play in that back three, who's back to fitness, and then you've also got the left wing back question as well of Cucurella, who's probably better offensively, or Ben Chilwell, who's maybe a little bit better defensively. Obviously, they're going to be up against Jarrod Bowen, who's a very, very good player. And West Ham with their new centre-forward in Scamacca as well, he's going to be keen to try and ruffle feathers. So I think it's, quite hard to really predict exactly how each side are going to match up and what they're going to do. Obviously, you've also got the added caveat that, if Chelsea or West Ham bring anyone in on deadline day, then do they suddenly enter the equation? Is it too late for them sort of, to come in? Obviously, if you're bringing in players like Aubameyang, obviously injured, but if you bring in Edson Alvarez, for example, he's been playing with Ajax and has been, been match fit, so is ready to step straight in.
So a little bit about the attack. Obviously, people have noticed that there has been a lack of production from the striker position and Kai Havertz as well as Mason Mount. Do you expect there to be any maybe rotation heading into this weekend? I expected it probably myself, maybe for the Southampton game, but we didn't see it. Do you think that kind of gets rotated this weekend?
I would be surprised if there wasn't at least one piece of rotation that comes in. I'd be very surprised if Armando Broja didn't get a start. I think, West Ham tried to buy him in the summer. He'll be keen to try and, show them, this is what you could have had. I think he came on and looked bright against Southampton. As I said elsewhere, he was my one crumb of comfort against Southampton in the second half, was that he looked, up for it and looked ready. And I think with Havertz misfiring, I almost wonder if you want to try and play them up front together, and you almost want to play them up front maybe with Sterling sort of floating in sort of in a free role in that final third, because I think Havertz always looks a lot better when he has a partner up front. And his best or his most productive Chelsea performance went against Barnsley in the Cup when he had Tammy Abraham to play off and he had a centre forward and sort of a 9 to play off. Now, whether Tuchel will shuffle the formation that much remains to be seen. I think it's more likely to be a 3-4-3, but I'd like him at some point really to try maybe a 4-2-2 with, if they're fully fit, Kovacic and, one of Jorginho or Edson Alvarez if he comes in the midfield, and then probably Sterling and I'm not sure who you put in the other free role at the moment. In all honesty, there are arguments and drawbacks on Pulisic, on Ziyech and on Mason Mount, and then Havertz and Broja up front, but I don't think that'll happen.
So a little bit about the midfield. We know that Ruben Loftus-Cheek is injured. There were some talks maybe this morning that he might be healthy enough to go. Now, is there a potential that we could see maybe Chukwuemeka play? I know that Tuchel, I mean, him coming had to have said, okay, there's going to be some first team opportunities for you here. Is
Mhm.
Tuchel prepared to put a player like Chukwuemeka in when the team is kind of reeling like this? Or is it kind of like, hey, we'll put you in when it's the right situation for us?
I think it's probably a mix of both. I think Tuchel isn't necessarily against putting Chukwuemeka in, but I think he had the under 19 Euros that he played in, but then he didn't really have much of a pre-season because he spent most of it, Aston Villa dropped him out of their pre-season while he wouldn't, was sorting out a move. Then he joined Chelsea, but our pre-season was almost sort of finished and didn't really have a chance to sort of step in. He's played a few games with the youth sides and sort of, has looked a cut above in many aspects, but also, is obviously not the finished ticket. I think, Chelsea are they're trying to avoid, I think, throwing him completely at the deep end because this is someone who has a limited Premier League experience and was very much signed as one for the future and one who's got a lot of potential. But if you maybe get a situation where Chelsea are a couple of goals up in a game, and maybe it would happen last week against Leicester if Chelsea went sort of 2-0 up and had 11 men on the pitch, that you could have seen someone like Chukwuemeka get a chance.
So this is kind of a wrap-up question, and this is somewhat more about transfers than it is about the West Ham game. But do you get the impression that Todd Boehly kind of senses that Chelsea's potential Premier League window is probably 2, 3, or 4 years down the road? It to me, it appears that a lot of his signings, while you do have Sterling and Koulibaly, are sort of planning for that title window because it's apparent that Manchester City and Liverpool kind of have a lock right now on the next 2 to 3 years of the Premier League. Do you think Bully came in and kind of said, let's take a step back here and let's not buy necessarily a finished product where we can go try and win the Premier League today? And obviously, you need to maintain top four to kind of continue that allure for the top players. But do you get a sense that Bully has kind of moved kind of his transfer approach based off of the logic that it might not be Chelsea's time to really challenge right now?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, you can't really, I think, get away with saying that when you look at the outlay that's happened this summer. I do think it's been a significant change in approach in that previously there has been a lot more focus on buying ready-made sort of players and only focusing on sort of oven-ready players. But at the same time, there's the Cobham Academy, which is an incredible academy, but increasingly it is becoming quite clear that maybe if you can get one or two players coming out of the academy that are very, very good, and then supplement them with the other best young players in the world, which is what people like Bayern Munich are doing, you can have a very, very good solution. And the same to an extent with Barcelona. Barcelona have brought through Pedri and Gavi, but at the same time, Araujo as well. But at the same time, they've bolstered it by signing other very good young players. Obviously, he signed Frankie de Jong a few years ago. They've had Serginho Dest on the books. They've got Jules Koundé now sort of joining. They brought in Pablo Torre. They have a lot of, very good young talents that in theory the crop is all going to mature at the same time. What I do certainly think is systematic this window is there's forward planning in place. You look at people like Cassadai and Chukwuemeka, they are both in mind for the fact that Chelsea have two midfielders that are aging, or three midfielders that are aging in Jorginho, Kovacic and Kante, two of which are out of contract next summer. In theory, you're probably looking at one of them in the next 2 years to step up and come into that and be a regular option there. Gargos Slonina obviously is a very young goalkeeper, but at the same time he has a lot of experience already. And you're probably looking at him and saying, well, you think Kepa's going to move on. Again, I thought he was going to move on this window, but you think he'll move on at some point. There's question marks over Edouard Mendy. Slonina is the sort of player that can come in and be the number one for, 10 plus years at his age. And that, Mendy's not a young goalkeeper. I'm not pretending that, he's not a young goalkeeper, but he's also not an old goalkeeper at this moment in time. But it's important to have credible backup in that situation. Zach Sturge at left back, you're looking at him, and you've also got Ian Maatsen out on loan. That's potentially your left back situation sorted for the next decade. And then you maybe can think about, if a good offer comes in for Chilwell next year, or in a couple of years' time, if Cucurella decides that Barcelona come knocking again and he wants to go back to Barcelona, you've got those contingency plans in place. So I think there's been a lot more forward planning this window, certainly. And you're seeing it to an extent with Arsene Zakarian as well. That, is forward planning and a player for the future, not necessarily someone to come in right now, but it's someone in a few years that could be, very, very good. And it's signing them up now and trying to sign them up before they say move to a Leicester or Southampton. And then suddenly, rather than paying 15 million, you're paying 60, 70 million, as we've seen with, Cucurella and Fofana, who are two players Chelsea scouted before they moved to Brighton and Leicester, respectively, and didn't make moves for them.
Well, Rob, I really appreciate you coming on and spending a little bit of time giving us some of your insight. It was really a pleasure to have you on. Please go ahead and follow Rob on Twitter. The link is down in the description. Thank you so much, Rob.
Yeah, pleasure again. Thank you very much.